The Village of Waukesha. Tonight is Thursday, November 19th, 2020. It's 6 p.m. This is a special board meeting of the Village Board. The primary purpose of the meeting tonight is to hold a public hearing regarding the 2021 village budget. Joel, rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Proceed with the calling of the roll. Trustee Kalinsky.
Here.
Trustee German.
Here.
Trustee Doerr.
Here.
Trustee Stigler.
Here.
And I, President Fischer, am present, so all are present. In addition to that, we had notification about midday today. Our new clerk treasurer, Brandon Bledsoe, took ill, so he's unable to be here tonight, but we are grateful that Beth Gerbing, who's our full-time assistant to him, is here in his stead, so she'll be taking minutes of the meeting. Item 4 is open meeting law compliance check. The agenda was posted on the 3 village public notice boards, the village website, and distributed to all news media, requesting notification in accordance with the open meeting laws on or before November 18th, 2020. I believe that to be a true statement. Does anyone have any information to the contrary?
I do, Mr. President. For about a week, to my knowledge, the notification of the documents on demand that was sent out on November 4th at 4:17 for the posting of the summary budget. That link has not worked for some time, and when you click the link, it simply tells people who are directed to the website that the directory is not found. So I don't know that this meeting has been properly posted, and I do not believe that it was published in the Waukesha Freeman.
Okay. I believe it is on the, I'm not sure about the link, but it's on the village website under notices, I believe. Is that correct?
I'm expressing to you, for people who have requested to be notified of when documents are published, that the link that was provided to them takes them to a server error 404 file directory not found.
Okay, well, that's fine. This part of it is 3 village notice boards, the village website, and distributed to news media. Do you have any reason to believe that that's not true?
I have reason to believe of exactly what I told you, that the link that people were provided is not working.
Okay.
You think
All right.
that would be perhaps helpful if the attorney was here, but
Well, he had a conflict this evening, so
pretty sure that that's not true.
we'll proceed. We'll proceed at this point in time. If that becomes an issue downstream, we will deal with it. So item 5 is a public hearing, discussion regarding adoption of the 2021 village budget. I'm going to open the public hearing at this point in time. I want to make just a couple of comments, and if other board members would choose to as well, that's fine, but just a bit of information that might help clarify just a little bit where we are going. This is a bit different than years in the past when we were a town. By state law or state statute, the levy, the amount of money that was taxed upon the residents of the town of Waukesha, that levy level, the amount of the levy was set by the citizens who came to the budget meeting. That was by state statute. That was not done by the town board, any town staff member. That was done by the citizenry, and many of you, I think, participated in that in the past. This is a bit different now that we are a village. Since May 12th of last year, instead of a town, the residents of the village no longer set the tax levy, and that again is by statute. The tax levy is set by the village board. So that's a bit of a change in that regard. A couple of other things just backing up a bit. The Village of Waukesha, not unlike other municipalities in the state of Wisconsin, is constrained by state law, state levy limits. Those have been in place for a number of years, and in simple essence, what that means is there's a limit as to the amount of tax that can be levied by any municipality. I'm making this simplistic, unless you go to a referendum to increase those levy limits. So we basically get communication from the state of Wisconsin that says this is the maximum amount of tax that can be levied in your municipality. And that carries forward from year to year. You work off of the basis of the previous year, and you can only levy additional tax if you have growth. And the amount of additional tax that you can levy is proportional to the amount of growth. So if you take a look back historically, and just backing up a couple of years, but if you go to 2018, the amount of tax maximum that could be levied was $1,653,000 plus dollars. 2019, $1,664,000 plus dollars, so that went up $9,000 to $10,000. In 2020, $1,683,000 plus dollars, so that went up over the previous year, $19,000 to $20,000. This year, the maximum amount of money that can be levied is $1,696,636. That's up roughly $13,000 from last year. And that's all based on increment of growth. So the maximum amount of money that can be taxed by constraint of state statute for 2021 relative to 2020 is up 0.76%, roughly 0.75% or less than 1%. Backing up a bit to explain a couple of other things, everybody who is a property owner in the now village, former town of Waukesha, last spring sometime, I think it was March, but don't hold me to that, should have received a notice of reassessment for your property. And those notices of reassessment showed your property value going up significantly. And the reason that people got those notifications, again, was state mandated when the entirety of the community, when the assessed value falls below 80% of the estimated fair market value, again, looking at the village in the totality, the state requires a municipal-wide reassessment. So what that was basically saying, because it hadn't been done for a number of years, the assessed values that we were using were at or in danger of falling below 80% of the fair market value. So the entirety of the village was reassessed, and unless you did something to improve your property with an addition to your house or business or that type of thing, everybody went up approximately the same amount. There's a lot of confusion and people thought their taxes were going up. It's not so. It's simply that there's an adjustment. The total amount of the value, the amount of tax that's going to be levied is virtually unchanged. So the amount of tax to individual people is virtually unchanged. Last December, there were a number of concerns expressed because when people got their real estate tax bills, they saw that they went up fairly significantly. And there were phone calls made to the then town here and that type of thing. The reason that people's taxes went up last December had nothing to do with the town of Waukesha. It's because the school district of Waukesha passed the referendum for, someone might remember, but I think it was like $68 million or something like that. That was passed by the voters in the school district. That's what was reflected in your tax bills. The big picture part of it, if you look at your real estate tax bill from last year, or the one that you're gonna get in a couple of weeks here, you need to look at the amount of your property tax bill that is going to the 4 taxing entities: the School District of Waukesha, Waukesha County, the Village of Waukesha, and WCTC. And you'll see in those, I could have brought a tax bill, but you'll see that the amount of tax you're paying in your real estate tax bill, significantly more than half of it goes to the school district. Running a little bit loose on that, but it's 60% probably or more. The second highest portion of that goes to Waukesha County. I'm gonna say loosely that's somewhere in the neighborhood of 20%, or a fifth of it goes to Waukesha County. About 15% of it is all that goes to the Village of Waukesha. And the smallest part of that goes to WCTC. So even though you're getting your tax bill from the Village of Waukesha, people need to understand of the total amount of tax you're paying, roughly 15%, about a sixth or a seventh of it goes to the Village of Waukesha. The rest of it goes other places, mostly to the school district. Back to where we started a little bit in terms of the total amount of tax that can be levied. For the last 4 or 5 years, when the town was able to levy somewhere around 1.6 to 1.65 or a bit more $1 million, that equated to what's called a mill rate, MIL, of roughly $1.80 per thousand. That fluctuated a bit, $1.78, $79, $80, $81. And that meant if you took your assessed value of your property, the amount of tax that was going to the town of Waukesha was $1.80 roughly for every $1,000 of your assessed valuation. I mean, if you owned a piece of land or a piece of property that was assessed at $100,000, you would pay $180 of your tax bill was going to the town of Waukesha. If you owned a $200,000 property, take 180 times 2, $360 of your tax bill was going to the town of Waukesha. $300,000 property, take 4 times that 180, you're at 540 roughly. So that's the amount that ends up going to the town of Waukesha. Because of the re-evaluation that was done last spring, the mill rate per thousand, if you look at your tax bill, it's coming out in a couple weeks, will be down to $1.44, some fraction of roughly between $1.44 and $1.45 per thousand. So there may be some people that may be up a little bit, some down a little bit, but basically everybody, assuming that the village board votes here this evening to assess the maximum or accept the maximum total tax levy allowed by the state with state mandated constraints or levy limits of $1,696,636. That'll equate to a mill rate of $1.44 or $1.45 per thousand. When you look at your tax bills this year, compare them to last year, there will be very little change for anybody. So going just one step further on that, I think there's been some misunderstanding out there, information that taxes are going up 14.3%. That's simply untrue. That's misinformation. We can dive into that a little bit deeper when we move along this evening. So I thought it might be helpful to lay some of that out. It gets a bit involved, but hopefully that's helpful to people understand what's going on. So that said, we'll open the public hearing. I think we've got an operable microphone. Here we would ask that people would sign in as well. There's a sign-in sheet there, but at least when you come forward, give your name, spell your last name, please, so Beth can get that. Give us your address and proceed to speak to the budget. One other real quick thing we get there, the actual budget that the village board will be considering after the citizens' comments are done and the public hearing is closed will be this single-page document. There should be extra pieces of document back there. It goes to one-page paper, and it basically has three components to it: the operating budget, the fire inspection budget, and the capital budget. There are summary line items for revenues and expenditures. The foundation for that is in a variety of, and I think there's extra copies back there, but budget worksheets here for those various accounts that the village board worked through in the recent past here. That part of the detail, we will not be adopting those detailed budget worksheets. We'll be adopting the overall budget, and the board will engage in discussion about whether to adopt that, whether to propose amendments to it, and so forth. So that's where we're headed tonight. You're certainly welcome to speak to line items on the budget worksheets. They're entitled Budget Worksheet Detail, because that's the foundation that builds this overall document. So with that said, just one other thing, I guess, significantly or importantly on here, you can see again the total amount of revenue that came from taxes and so forth in each one of these budgets, and hopefully that makes some sense to you. So at that point, I guess I'll pause. Anybody else on the board want to make any other preliminary comments here before we entertain citizen comments? Okay, if not,
I would step in if you're
Okay.
going to offer.
please do.
So I would point out that while the comments about the overall tax levy are true, it can't be missed that the increased taxes devoted to the operating budget on the summary sheet are going up 13.99%. On the itemized documents that we reviewed last on October 28th, it was 14.3, but there were some adjustments that were made. That's fine, so we're still in the ballpark of 14%. So the amount of the taxes that are being committed to the operating budget are increasing 14%. And in order to stay under the state mandated revenue cap, the way that that's being accomplished is the amount of money that's committed to the capital plan is being essentially cut in half by 46%. So it'll be interesting in the discussion to see if the members of the board are committed to a capital budget in total of $220,000. Because it was just a couple of weeks ago that the board adopted a capital plan that had a total of $2.2 billion in it for next year. And now we published a budget that essentially we'll get to a vote on at some point tonight. And for those who vote in favor of the budget, they're expressing to the public this evening that they're committed to a capital budget of $220,000. And that's further itemized by $70,000 for public safety, $75,000 for public works, and $75,000, it's 70 for general government, 75 for public safety, and 75 for public works. So that comes to a total capital expenditure of $220,000. It'll be interesting to see how it's explained that the capital plan of $3.1 million is intended to be funded. But the reality is that the amount of money committed to the operating budget, last year we spent in the ballpark, we levied taxes of committed to the operating budget of $1.313 million. And this year, we are gonna tax to the operating budget of $1.496 million. And no matter how you slice it, it's gonna cost 14% more to operate the town. And the way that we're funding that, to stay under the state mandated revenue limit, is by gutting the amount of money that we have historically put to capital projects.
Okay, we will open up to citizen comments at this point in time. If you'd like to come forward, a couple of other just real quick reminders. I believe the village board wants to hear comments from all who are here. Typically, I advise people to try to get really close to the microphone so you project and we can hear you. We're in that situation now with the coronavirus type of thing. I mean, get your own comfort zone by the microphone. Speak loudly regardless of how close you get to the microphone so we can hear you. There are sanitary wipes, hand sanitizer, and so forth on the table next to the microphone there. For your own comfort, I would encourage people to use those.